Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We need to talk about this clown world that we're living in. And while the last couple of months, and probably the next one, are going to be full of a lot of clowning kind of things, no more so than when we get to the month of October. And not for the normal reason that it happens to be Halloween. Instead, we have a clown war happening right now between two clowns in the box office, and only one of them is set to win. And what's funny about it is that the cheaper clown is going to be the better clown, at least as far as the audience is concerned. Let's dive into it. So let's talk about the cinema of clowns. So of course we've got to talk about Joker 2, just not in a good way. I mean, in this cinema of clown world that we're in right now, I'm talking about Terrifier 3, the indie horror hit that's literally clowning on Joker 2 at the box office. Literally. Yeah, believe it or not, the low-budget horror flick starring Art the Clown is on the brink of dethroning the Clown Prince of Crime, which is frankly the joke in and of itself, which I think is really funny. So of course that means we have to break down some numbers, which I like to do here on my channel because I focus on the business side of things. And we need to figure out why Terrifier 3 is laughing its way all the way to the bank, why Joker 2 is stumbling out of the theaters so badly, like a terrible punchline. So what's the deal? How does a film like Terrifier 3, which cost 1% of Joker 2's budget, suddenly find itself at the top of the box office? Well, let's start first with the numbers. Terrifier 3 had a Thursday preview night of about 2.6 million, and it made more in one night than it actually took to make the entire movie, at least as compared to the budget. It's already recouped the $2 million budget when you think about it that way, in less time than the average person takes to, well, pick a film on Netflix. That's right, it made more in one night than it actually took to make the entire movie, which is amazing if you compare it to just the budget, not the prints and ads, which seems to be a little less relevant for something like this, which relied heavily on social media advertising. Meanwhile, Joker 2 opened with $37.6 million at the box office. Now, that may sound like a lot of cash until you remember that this film cost over $200 million to make. So if we break that down, for every dollar Terrifier 3 spent on its production, Joker 2 spent 100 times more and still couldn't deliver. It's like the difference between buying a small espresso shot, which I obviously had a few of today, versus treating your entire neighborhood to some gourmet coffee bar and realizing they don't even like the coffee. Okay, maybe that's an imperfect analogy, but at least it's funnier than anything we saw in either of these films. Of course, one was intentionally a horror movie, and the other one was unintentionally a horror movie, at least for the producers and David Zaslav over there at Warner Brothers. Funnier still, and the most amazing part of this story is the reviews, though. Critics usually tear horror movies apart, right? I mean, for Terrifier 3, though, Rotten Tomatoes has critics giving it about a 76% score. I mean, if you know what you're going into as far as gore horror is concerned, you kind of know what you're going to get, which means you have to judge it on what it's delivering. So, of course, the rating's pretty good. I mean, honestly, that's really not bad for a movie where a psychotic clown killer butchers people on Christmas Eve, which is the premise here. That's practically Oscar territory for the horror genre, at least as far as those ratings are concerned. Most people don't actually realize that when it comes to horror, it's the fans that matter most because they're going to get the word out to their friends and family and anybody else who's interested in horror. And believe me, there are tons of communities that are going to be focused solely on this film for the rest of the month. And good for them. So speaking of that audience, guess what? They love it. 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. And that's a kind of score that's going to make your movie go for the rest of October, which is, I guess, the whole point. And then you compare that to Joker 2, where people are, well, they're just kind of confused. It's like, why is Lady Gaga singing? And where's the Joker we actually liked? Because both of those things are entirely different tonally from the first film, which is why the sequel was made, right? And fans really did go into the film appreciating and expecting a more gritty crime drama, something related to the court procedures or the battle for competency. And they got neither. We basically got a Joaquin Phoenix fever dream based on La La Land, more so than we got anything that we had from the first movie, which is why people hate it. I mean, you know it's bad when your movie about the Joker has fans walking out thinking, this is way too musical. I mean, no offense to Lady Gaga, which I think she really underdelivered vocally, unless she was instructed to do so, which we've been being told that that was the thing that was going on there. She was intentionally singing badly. I don't know. I think fans were just expecting more madness and a little less Moulin Rouge, which actually would have been an improvement. Wow, this movie was bad. So why is Terrifier 3 hitting so hard with fans? Well, there's an undeniable resurgence of indie horror in the last few years. I've been one of the people pushing it because it's been so good recently. And overall, fans are gravitating towards movies that don't follow the formulaic, big budget, bloated nonsense that was becoming the norm and all too familiar in every other studio picture. Movies like Terrifier embrace that raw, unapologetic, grindhouse kind of vibe that fans miss. They're gritty, for real. They're low budget, for real. But they don't skimp on the thrills. They deliver with a meager budget, usually a more passionately driven project that is more relatable and authentic, which everybody was looking for authenticity these days. Why isn't Hollywood listening? I don't know, but these indies are, and they're doing really well. When it comes to giving you something that's terrifying and real, Terrifier 3 delivers. Seriously, just look at the engagement. The firm's official Instagram is having a field day with Joker 2's demise, dropping jokes left and right, of course. And why not? I mean, when you're the underdog coming out on top, you get to have fun at the expense of your competition. Plus, fans love when filmmakers interact with them on social media. It makes them feel like they're part of the ride. I mean, compare that to the silence from Warner Brothers regarding Joker 2's Fall from Grace. There's no jokes, no banter, just cold corporate disappointment, which I think, well, is kind of deserved. But let's dig into the real problem with Joker 2. It's not just the film, it's the colossal budget, $200 million. And for a sequel movie that didn't need one at all, it kind of came off as a second serving of a full Thanksgiving dinner after it had already cooled off and started to spoil. And as much as people didn't want those particular leftovers, Todd Phillips definitely didn't want to make a leftover Joker film, which he absolutely did, in a way that he knew would probably absolutely flop, even though his publicity has been saying that he was kind of forced to it. Of course, Todd didn't want to film outside of LA, which could have dropped the price an incredible amount, and, well, that just wasn't going to happen. The expensive locations, the budgets, and everything to make one thing look like another, really the culprit as far as budget bloat goes, beyond the $50 million in the director and actor's salaries. You're talking about three enormous numbers, over $52 million, that really did put the bloat in the bloviating bomb. And again, compare that unfavorably to the budget for something like Terrifier 3, where David Howard Thornton is probably working for peanuts, and yet his performances as Art the Clown is earning rave reviews. It's proof that you really don't need to have these massive budgets to create a hit that fans will absolutely love. You just need a story that connects with people and gives them what they want. And right now, horror fans want chaos and gore and basically want things that are feeling very independent. A psychological thriller that will be able to stand alone. You need to add more gore in there. I'm kidding. And as a side note, there is a legacy for clowns in cinema. It's usually one that's quite spooky. And it's kind of hilarious right now that the battle of these clowns are one from a horror genre and one from a drama genre, but they seem to both end up to being horror stories, one of their own making. Of course, when it comes to the box office, having clowns compete against each other may be something that's rather novel. You've got Art the Clown from Terrifier, who's a sadistic monster who gleefully tortures people on screen. And that's going head-to-head, obviously, with Joker, DC's iconic tragic villain. Clowns have always had this weirdly magnetic pull in pop culture, from Pennywise to obviously Joker, and now Art stepping into the fold. Clowns have a strange psychological effect on people, and when it comes to horror or humor, they have a magical way of alleviating your anxiety in one way or another. Of course, if you're Warner Brothers right now, you're a little more anxious than, well, you were about a month ago. Of course, Terrifier 3 is leaning into that kind of fear, while Joker 2 seems to be forgetting what made Joker scary in the first place, instead of showing us a twisted mind descending into madness, which is kind of what I expected here. It's giving us some cinematography, some lighting, some color grading, and some terrible vocal performances from people you think would be able to do better. Add to that a terrible to non-existent story, and you've got Joker 2. It could be that something even more terrifying than a murderous clown is probably a murderous clown that breaks into song midway through a rampage. I mean, I don't know. It's not exactly what I signed up for when I think of the Joker, but maybe that would have improved the film a little bit. So honestly, what's the bottom line? I mean, Terrifier 3 is a movie that you need to see this weekend if you're at all a fan. It's got everything a horror fan could want. It's got gore, suspense, a maniacal clown, and an underdog story between two studios, one independent, one massive. And if you're looking for the same old formula, the Hollywood bloated budgets and all that, well, perhaps Terrifier 3 is not for you. And based on box office performance, it looks like maybe Joker 2 isn't for anybody. And it may fall all the way down to number 3 or even a steeper decline if we get other films performing better. I still think Wild Robot is going to do rather well and maybe be in the second or even first position at the end of the weekend. We'll see. And that's it for today, folks. I just want to know what you think. Terrifier 3 or Team Joker? Are you excited about the performance at the box office of Terrifier, or were you just disappointed with the performance of Joker 2? Either way, it's a win for the gore terror clown and a huge loss for Warner Brothers Discovery. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. It's really important. The more you add to the conversation, the bigger the video will get. That's absolutely true. Also, one way to help out is to hit the like button before you go, and of course, to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. And if you're here for the first time or the 1000th time, please double check that you are subscribed and let this be the day I earn your support, because it's free and I do this every single day just for you. Do be sure to watch another one of my videos immediately after this one. It's one way that YouTube has told us that they will continue to send you the notification so you don't miss anything. It's also another way to make sure you don't get unsubscribed. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see you.